We are currently the chair of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Forum and the Speaker's Forum. How do you chair those meetings if you are sanctioned by the mother host of the Commonwealth?
You can do a Zoom.
No, but Zoom you see, once UK sanctions you, they don't want to see you anywhere near. They don't want association. So even on a Zoom is association with UK, which has been prohibited, meaning that now a speaker cannot participate in any Commonwealth activities. So you have now the US, you have tomorrow if another country issues sanctions, then you will have a speaker who is caged in Uganda, like the last days of Bashir when he was a fugitive. You step in South Africa, you run because people are going to arrest you, you become a fugitive. That is not the role of a speaker. The speaker has international duties to execute. So maybe the speaker will have to step aside. But in the meantime, it will be the deputy to take on these roles because the speaker cannot. Even simple diplomatic events in Uganda here, it will be highly unlikely that the speaker will be invited.
All right. Could these sanctions be a witch hunt? We have seen the trend that the information that is coming up from the UK sanctions, a speaker did post on our socials that it has been verified that she has no house in the UK, and we have seen letters that were running around, the letters that were moving around, the exchange between her and the president over the same issues, and from that trajectory, some people have concluded that this also is there's a possibility of a witch hunt, basically because of the Anti-Homosexuality Act.
I believe that's a lie. I have all reasons to believe that that is a pure lie. Why do I say so? The act has a mover and seconders. Those are the primary promoters of the Anti-Homosexuality Act. The speaker does not vote. The speaker does not debate, although sometimes there are irregularities in the conduct of 11th Parliament. Let me make my point.
She made some tough
statements. No, I know, but you see, that was also irregular. The speaker is supposed to be protected. So if she made herself vulnerable with careless statements, Rule 77 of this current Parliament is very clear. The speaker is not supposed to engage in any debate whatsoever. The Constitution also says the same. The speaker must be neutral and impartial on all matters. So if she stepped out of the line and went away from the legal protection, that is also carelessness. But why do I say that it's not AHA? If it was AHA, then you start with the mover and seconders. Those are promoters of that law. So any sanction that does not include all three people, I think is a lie.
All right. Let's hear from the Honorable Simon Mulongo. You also been part of a discussion here about the sanctions, the UK sanctions. You are one of those people who actually thought it is a witch hunt. Now we have the US coming out, and this time the US is talking about the manner in which the speaker has been running the House. Allegedly, her leadership has been used to, benefit herself, which we would call abuse of office, but also the other people have actually been sanctioned. Do you still hold your position that this is a witch hunt? And basically, if you can also give us your reaction to these sanctions from the US.
Thank you so much. I thank you, my sister, Sarah, for those very combative statements. I think, first of all, I will start from the fact that global diplomatic network is live and very active, and countries that think or believe they share certain similar ideologies will actually try to campaign, will actually try to ensure that they enlist support for the actions they do globally, or which have a global bearing. I saw that when it came to the Russia and Ukraine war. Even here, there were people knocking on the doors of our highest offices to make sure that they get support against Russia, for example, from the West. And the East also was moving in to ensure that they get support against the West by the East. And so really, to me, the Magnitsky Act, which originated from the US in 2016, I think, is a law that was created by the US, and which also the US is trying to popularize among other allies, that they think whatever action they take should be seen to be a popular one, and which is supported across the globe. So, and as such, this is not a multilateral legal framework. This is the law by some individual countries, and it's true that some of them have been able to domesticate it, and so it has become a law in a number of other countries that are allies to the US. But I think, yes, it is only good in as far as it being, if it can correspond to the local municipal laws, because the Constitution is very clear, 1995 and as amended.
But Honorable Mulongo, one would argue that these people have made those laws to specifically fit their policies, so they are free to apply them.
Yes, but as long as it is not applying to themselves, but they're using it to apply to others, this is a long jump. Legal and diplomatic operations.
Well, they're telling you don't come to our country.
No, it's not just that. It's not just that. I will come to that. The Constitution says, Article 28 of Article 1, that no person shall be charged with or convicted of a criminal offense which is not defined by law. Now, these laws in Uganda define what kind of crimes one would have committed. And as such, if somebody has committed a crime, it's just right and fitting that if you have committed a crime, you should be subjected to the due process. You should pay for it.
Significant corruption or gross violations of human rights. Those are not punishable by law in Uganda?
I'm saying, as a principle, that anyone who commits a crime, you should be punished. It doesn't matter who. Okay? And so I want us to focus on whatever they're doing, if it is punishable in law by law in Uganda or not.
If it's applicable to us.
Yes, if it's applicable to us. Secondly, this is not a multilateral arrangement. It's not like a convention. It's not like a protocol to which we are signatories. These are things that have been done by the whims and wishes of those countries. And so they may be used either for or even against us as a country. So we have to be careful what this means, because we have social imperialism. We have other forms of neo-imperialism where people can use such as an excuse to target your good cadres to weaken your institutions of government. So we must look at that as well. In this case, I'm not saying that they have not committed a crime. If they have committed a crime, they should be investigated. The other thing is our principles of law require that somebody should be proved to be guilty. When our colleagues in the West sit down and just carry out their own investigations, they don't involve you to defend yourself. You don't know how the process comes to be arrived at in terms of their action, including the people who have been already charged in courts, whose status has also been acted on by the president appointing authority. They have lost their ministerial appointments. They go ahead to, this is more than a double jeopardy, actually it's triple jeopardy, that you are suffering and paying for the same sins of the same matter all over. And to us, in terms of law, as lawmakers, I don't think that's correct. Now, what is more serious is that when they are challenged to bring evidence, they begin talking, somebody has a house in the UK, or somebody has an account from which they pay school fees. Look at that. And to me, as long as the sanctions are not synchronized with our municipal laws, and that these people have been given opportunity to also defend themselves, I have every reason to begin suspecting that there are other motives. Otherwise, if they have clear evidence, if the persons involved have been able to defend themselves in a way, there's no reason why we should cover anybody in this country. So they should be punished as long as they've committed those wrongs.
So why are you covering them? Do hold your thoughts there.
I'm not covering anyone. I'm just saying they should be punished, but the punishment should follow the very critical principles that, as we know.
Let's go for a break.
Able to defend themselves.
Let's go for a break. When we return, I will allow you to actually conclude your point, and then we'll introduce our next guest, who has also walked in studio. This is Spectrum Extra on Radio 1 FM 90, review of the major events of the week. We're right now looking at the new sanctions from the U.S. government against 5 Ugandans, including the Speaker of Parliament, Anita, and then we also see Major General Peter Elweru, and the new person also on the list of sanctions is the Honorable Amos Lukwago, who is the State Minister in charge of planning. Stay tuned to Radio 1 FM 90, but keep your comments coming via the WhatsApp line, which is 0703 090 090.
Spectrum Extra, Fridays 7 to 9 p.m. on Radio 1 FM 90.
Well, thank you so much for staying with us on Spectrum Extra live on Radio 1 FM 90, reviewing the major events of the week. My guest, Dr. Bireete, Chief Executive Officer at the Center for Constitutional Governance. We have in studio Council Gawaya Tegule, veteran journalist, lawyer, who is also a columnist with the Daily Monitor. In studio also Ambassador Simon Mulongo, governance and security expert, who did represent Bobolo East in Parliament and served as the deputy head of the African Union mission in Somalia. At the moment, we are looking at the U.S. sanctions, which were actually announced yesterday, yet again targeting Speaker of Parliament Anita, this time specifically on she's being sanctioned allegedly due to involvement in what they call significant corruption tied to her leadership of Uganda's parliament. And some people have been saying this could be as a result of the parliamentary exhibition, where a number of issues were actually put across. These sanctions are also extending to spouses, so their spouses will not be also traveling to the U.S. Let's allow the Honorable Simon Mulongo to actually conclude his point, and then we'll hear from Council Gawaya Tegule. Very quickly, Honorable Mulongo, if you can conclude.
Yes, the point is that one thing we agree as a panel, and I also agree with Dr. Bireete, that any crime should be punished. And if somebody is corrupt and you're found guilty, you should be punished. There's no doubt about it. But also would like to see us to think twice about the meting of penalties on matters of crime that are said to be committed in Uganda by sovereign powers from the outside. And doing that without us knowing the process of how they undertook the investigations. We don't know whether there is any cross-checking of that, and whether somebody who has the right to defend oneself, which is a principle, a very important principle, was actually done. I know some people will say this is a sovereign matter. As long as the sovereign power has every reason to believe, they can do so. But this jeopardizes the very principles and essence of law. And yes, because
Simon, they're not believing.
You interfere with my talk.
I'm just putting a footnote.
Information.
They don't actually believe.
In a good debate, once you want to give information, you ask for somebody to.
Honorable Mulongo, you are protected.
He's protected.
He's protected.
I allow him as well. But it's allowed to inform him that
allow him to conclude so that you can have ample time. So that you can have ample time to actually rebut.
Because they have reasons to believe that somebody has committed a crime. When you look at the Speaker of Parliament, I'm not saying she's clean. She may be, she may not. But the fact is that she got the iron sheets and returned them. And if she returned them according to local systems, she was not put at the same level with those who either abused those iron sheets or those who actually offered to dispute those iron sheets. In other words, in this country, there is a way the matter was assessed by the prosecution to that effect.
Right.
So for this case,
another Speaker Anita is not being sanctioned because of the iron sheets.
That's what we saw from the UK.
That's the UK. The Americans are talking about involvement in significant corruption tied to her leadership.
I am tying the two together because these are two twins.
Let's try to isolate them.
One divided by the Atlantic. The other one is, if you look at, and I want to agree with Dr. Bireete that why haven't they gone for the movers? I'm not saying they should go after the movers and seconders of the motion. But we have been watching some debates in the West, particularly in the Parliament in the UK. They're very categorical about this. They're castigating leadership in general. And in such a situation, they can use any means to go after some institutional heads.
All right.
You see, the head matters a lot. If the speaker does not want a motion to see the light of the day, can actually suppress it.
All right.
So for that matter, there's no, I cannot say that because it is not, the movers are not being affected, then it cannot be AHA. It could be. I'm not saying that's the only thing, but it could be.
All right, let's hear from...
Just slight information.
Very quickly.
Yeah. If you see the write-up from the U.S. State Department, they actually refer to stealing from the neediest communities. So they state that.
So they include it.
Yeah, it is included.
It is included.
No.
Yeah.
That is specifically on the
Thank you so much,
on the other three.
No. For all the four, they actually say
it
is also included.
Yeah. So I still hold my point.
All right. Let's hear from Mr. Gawaya Tegule. Your take on this?
On the sanctions. First of all, I want to sympathize with my sister Anita. I want to sympathize with my brother, who is also our OB at Mulongo, Mr. Moses Magogo. These are not simple things. When we talk about sanctions, I know some people try to be simplistic about them and say, for me, as long as I'm not, I can go to my home in Bukede and whatever. I think I don't want us to downplay the impact of sanctions. I don't want us to downplay the impact of the superpowers beginning to shun you and saying you can't do business with us, you can't come to our countries. When we come to a global economy, when we come to a global village, every place matters in the sense that a small thing here becomes a big thing everywhere else. I would like to sympathize, therefore, with Honorable Anita Among and her husband. I want to sympathize with my sister Agnes Nandotu and all these other people. These are not easy times. I want to say one thing. I thought that there's room for improvement in the sense of who should actually be sanctioned. Let me begin with Major General Elwelu. I was in Kasese to assess the impact of General Elwelu's actions. It was heartbreaking. I thought Mr. Simon Mulongo, Ambassador Simon Mulongo, is a security expert. You can always maybe have a debate on the nature of that operation. How is it conducted? We have seen countries conduct similar operations in a smooth and tactical manner with the objective to minimize bloodshed. And for me, that is where I think the Lulus got it wrong. I would say that he might plead the defense of superior orders, saying I was acting under superior orders, I could not say no. I suspect that is what is at the back of his mind. But under international law, the defense of superior orders, actually international criminal law, if you like, the defense of superior orders cannot hold. The defense that I was under instructions cannot hold. The law envisages that anybody should be able to exercise their higher judgment in times like that. That just because you've been commanded, you cannot just go shooting people like that. I thought that was a bungled operation. It was poor. It was very unprofessional. It was brutal. It was the kind of thing that should never happen in a country that cares about its people. But you see, when in Uganda, where life has lost value, where life has lost meaning, where people think they can take any life anyhow, and I thought that on that one, the sanctions against General Elwelu, I think are deserved on that one. But I also think that other people, those who are above him, should be sanctioned. The commander-in-chief himself ought to have been sanctioned for that particular bungled venture in Kasese. You cannot just lower the you can't just let life lose value like that. You can just shoot, bluntly. I was in Kasese. I looked at the harm that was done. It broke my heart. Up to now, sometimes you get nightmares because of what you saw. I think that the superpowers should be more active and strategic in their sanctions. The superiors of Eluelu, the people he was acting under, also ought to have been sanctioned. In this case, of course, at the end of the day, one will say that the superpowers also will have their own strategic interests. If President Museveni is still serving their broader interests, then they'll say, no, let's leave him for now. But at the same time, when it's no longer useful, then maybe the sanctions will bite him as well. But I thought that on that Kasese issue, really the president ought to have been sanctioned or at least severely condemned by the international community. What was done there was not right. It was brutal. It was inhuman. It was atrocious and needs to be condemned. I want also to say that where a country values the lives of its people, there is a way the armies will conduct operations. That is, they will come with the objective of sparing human life, minimizing casualties, and saying that whatever happens, let's not waste human life anyhow. But in Kasese, it was not the case. I also want to say that the issue of the iron sheets, I think there was, first of all, I suspect that the powers that be in the Americans, the British, saw that the way this matter was handled here was not right. Because in civilized countries, an entire government would have resigned. Because look at how many people are affected. The finance minister was there, the vice president was there, the speaker of parliament. These are not civilized countries. With the regimes like this, and you call them civilized. The whole issue is that there was selective prosecution. I don't think that Kitutu should be in the dock alone. I don't think with what's her name, Agnes Nandutu, my dear colleague, I think other people should have been in that. The Prime Minister should have been there. The Vice President should have been there. The Speaker should have been there, and others. But they were spared. And I suspect that is how this guy said, well, if nothing has been taken, maybe we can also lend a hand to the people of Uganda.
All right. So the argument by the government of Uganda that local processes are actually handling that. They are the ones that found this scandal. Already some people are being prosecuted. Even before judgment, you're already doing what? You're already pronouncing them guilty. That was the reaction which was given by Okello Oryem yesterday, who said actually the British and the Americans are actually undermining the judicial processes in Uganda, which are already looking into this matter.
The judicial processes are already compromised, I must say. The criminal legal process generally is compromised in this country. Not just both the judicial processes and the criminal legal processes are altogether compromised. There are people who will never be prosecuted because phone calls have come in from certain places, and therefore they are protected. They're insulated against the acts of atrocity against the people of Uganda. I feel that if this government had been a civilized government, they would have basically put pressure on every one of these people, from the vice president to the speaker to the prime minister and everybody who touched those iron sheets. Said, you knew very well that these iron sheets were for the people of Karamoja. You knew these are vulnerable people. They are begging on the streets. You knew very well that these guys are basically helpless, but you still went ahead to get what was supposed to be helping them, and you took them. You have all that you need. You have more than you need, but you still got from the poor. Like this reminds me of the story of David and Bathsheba, the wife of Uriah. David, a man who has many wives, goes and takes the wife of a man who has only one wife, and God said, "You can't do that. You can't do that. You have so many women, and you can even get more, but you got somebody's one wife, and you take her and you even kill the man. That's unforgivable." So I feel that this kind of what happened in the Marathi saga was unconscionable, that people whose head should have rolled were insulated. So you cannot really blame the superpowers for coming out and saying, let us put sanctions on them. But maybe, again, this should also teach us as Ugandans that we're living in a global village. It's no longer possible to carry on with impunity, because at the end of the day, at some point down the line, you're going to pay for what you have done, even though it seems unlikely that you're going to be punished. So I hope that this can be a lesson to all of us, especially those in power, that no matter how powerful you think you are, this world has grown much smaller. There are people bigger than you who are able to take a dim view of what you're doing, and the long arm of international law in this case will reach out to you. And by the way, this international law, in the sense that the Magnitsky Act, for example, is an act of the Americans that is supposed
correctly.
International law has a broad definition.
Include some municipal laws and
No. You see, there are municipal laws of international application, and that's where the Magnitsky Act falls. That is an act of a sovereign power by saying we shall reach out to people who we think are doing this and that everywhere, and that is why even you, my brother Simon Mulongo, should be scared that that if they catch you in certain things, they'll come looking for you.
Well, Dr. Sarah, one of the key questions that have been
maybe let me ask, corruption is now becoming an international crime for all intents and purposes, the way if you see what is happening now, because saying we are sanctioning you for corruption, meaning therefore that you see, law is dynamic, it grows. It means that where we are going, corruption will now come to be defined as one of the crimes of international application.
All right, let's hear from Dr. Sarah Bireete. Now, one of the biggest questions that is being asked by many people is, so what? You know, that's a question. And what next? Some people say, okay, they have been sanctioned. Some people have even argued and said it benefits only those powers who are issuing the sanction. Does it benefit us Ugandans? Do you see any benefits for this country? Should we actually be jubilating that our own are actually being sanctioned?
First of all, I want to add my voice that sanctions are international diplomatic tools used by members of the global community, of the international community. And they are sovereign decisions. So the issue that somebody
decisions against sovereign.
Can you just, you are the one who are saying a person waits for another one.
That is NRM.
I know. So go by your rules. So a sovereign decision.
I'm hoping you're learning from NRM. Okay, go ahead.
A sovereign decision means that a country, like for example, the Global Magnitsky Act applies globally. And it's the US saying, we don't want an association with you. Or our citizens.
And some people will say there's double standards. For instance, the US has rejected the ICC. You can't sanction the
Sarah should be protected from the regulator.
No, let me just first explain sanctions. ICC is a court. That's different from sanctions.
It's also a global mechanism.
No, yes, but it's a court. So the two are different. So when a country says you're not welcome here and you're not going to trade or relate with our citizens, there's no need to give you a right to be heard. It is you now who should go and sort yourself. For me, a sanction is an alert to a regime to say, you are failing to do your work. Please check. Check your representatives, check your people, fight impunity. So you were saying, so what? Many people underrate sanctions out of ignorance. They don't know the implications. If, for example, you here in Uganda, if you are banking with the Standard Chartered, Stanbic Bank, ABSA.
These are companies incorporated in Uganda, though?
Yes.
Yes.
You cannot have money in ABSA when you have global Magnitsky sanctions on your head.
Really?
Yes. Can you please?
Give us
Why is Simon?
No, we're helping you. We're helping you.
You're not.
To
I don't need your help.
Let's allow.
I don't need your help.
You need to.
They want to do excuses. having, so let me explain.
Let me just say,
So if you have economic sanctions, let me first finish my point.
Let me just say this.
Okay.
You need to be factual on this so that you're not also sanctioned.
Yes.
These are business interests.
Yes, of course. So if you have economic sanctions, you cannot have a bank account in any of these international banks. You cannot use your Visa card to buy anything or to travel. You cannot, even when Uganda was on the grey list for Anti-Money Laundering Act, government officials were getting stranded in international trips. They could not use their credit cards.
That's different.
So, no, I am showing you what these implications mean. So if here we have ABSA, we have Stanbic Bank, we have Standard Chartered Bank, you cannot have an account in these banks. If you have money there, you either withdraw it or it will be frozen. You cannot do any online purchase. You cannot use anything that includes a SWIFT code. You cannot. So, American Express, or all these Visa credit card facilities, you are out. So in Uganda's case, if you are sanctioned, you can only bank in the housing finance because it's purely local and post bank.
Is KCB?
No, but you can't. You can't. I'm telling you. So post bank, housing finance,
Centenary,
you cannot. Centenary has some foreign ownership. You cannot. So these are the implications of sanctions. I want to use an example of the Sudan regime under Bashir. Many of the officers, especially generals under Bashir, were under economic sanctions. That's why Bashir was arrested with a bedroom full of money. He could not use any banking system. You have to carry money on your back. You can even they reach a time and you cannot even use if mobile money, if MTN, which is an international company. You will reach a time and you cannot even use MTN mobile money platform. You will not. You use Airtel if they have interest with a sanctioning company. You cannot. So they will reach a time when they can only use their bedrooms as banks.
Okay. Yes, I think I want to agree with Dr. Sarah to some degree that once sanctions are issued, normally these imperial powers will lobby and ensure that they do a lot.
That's the
I've served in diplomatic world and I know what it is rigorously. I remember when we were working on the Rome Statute, we worked together with some superpowers in the West up to the time when it was the declaration was issued by the UN, and so they backtracked, and then they wanted. The purpose was to make it targeting some other countries, but not themselves, and they were forcing people not to go with that. So I know, and there's a lot of pushing by the diplomatic system, but back to this. Yes, it is true. Once you're sanctioned, you'll have a number of limitations. They will ensure that even those allies of theirs do not give you space in the systems, either travel or even trade and so on. And it's true that some banks, but those banks who also must toe the line of the local incorporated laws, which they cannot be allowed to toe that line. But there are those companies or those banks that actually do exactly that. If we say the sanctions is a signal to the regime
to check
the regime. If we take that line, that sounds in principle okay. But seriously, we have to think below the lines or between the lines. Is it just about those individuals or something else? To me,
Mr. Mulongo, can I ask a quick question?
You can't ask a question when you not allow me to ask you.
I'm asking permission to ask. I'm not interrupting.
You're interrupting my flow.
Then you say no.
Yes. You don't have to tell me what to tell you. I think that there are other motives, and I still am suspicious. There are other motives other than just that. They could use that as a trigger. Normally there are underlying issues, structural issues, long-term issues. But a simple act like this, it triggers what has been long been held as a purpose, as an objective. And I think one of which is politically motivated. And this could be expanded to include anything else. The issue of sanctioning some security personnel has not started today. It started some time back. A number of officers, because of human rights issues and so on, were sanctioned, and this remains sanctioned up to now. So to me, it could be that purely that there's a crime that you can also see, a third eye can see, but there are also those crimes allegedly that a third eye cannot see. But to them, they are crimes, and so they come after them. The issue of Kasese, I think I want to agree that it is something that requires debate. Kasese, I remember it was a build-up to that explosive and very unfortunate incident. Because that incident so unfortunate because we lost a number of people, some of whom I knew, or at least families that I knew in Kasese. But I want to say this, that these run-up activities were being reported very vividly. And I hope that members can recollect well. We had a situation where the Obusinga Borenzirulu started developing the notion of fighting for their sovereignty. And if you recall in the history, the founder of the Rwenzori movement, Isaiah Mukirane, started this, and this was a movement that they thought would actually lead to the independence of the Rwenzoris. And they fought so hard to go and meet the Queen. And I remember one time there was a delegation that went to Rwanda. They got money to go. I think there was about £5,000 at that time. That was a lot of money. But they did not have passports. When they asked for passports, were Ugandans, said, but we don't belong to Uganda. And they were driven back to Uganda, and Dr. Bota at that time was asked, and then they had to hold these people somewhere and say, we cannot take us to Kampala, that's not our country. They held, Ben Kiwanuka was their lawyer. They held a court in Marara, and the case just died naturally like that. But I can tell you the spirit for self-determination by the Rwenzori communities has been on, and I thought this could have been rekindled at this time. And there were reports about an emerging group of young activists who have become militant. Yes, and they were called Kilomira Mtima. And I remember when the government deployed police to quell this, they killed very many police. Many people were killed and they were butchered, and they could not even fear guns. It became a very serious matter.
We didn't hear that.
Yes, they did. They killed actually quite a huge number. They are not 10, they are, I think, more than 15 or towards 30. They were killed. And then from there, the military went there. When the military arrived, they were disarmed. I mean, it's like going to another country. They were disarmed, they were checked. It was so embarrassing. And some of the people who were sent to Kasese was part of the teams that engaged King Mwamberi, who is a very good friend of mine, by the way. And I supported.
Connected, my friend.
Yes, I supported, and I still support Obusinga Borenzirulu because I believe the kingdom as a cultural institution is useful to them.
Right.
So he did not want to change that course, and that led to that clash.
Right.
Now, whether there was some proportionality issues to talk about, that's another matter.
All right.
Because I'm sure the security plan that these generals had to execute it, they can actually explain it very vividly.
All right. There's nothing to explain.
Let's go to the press now. A number of comments have come in from the listeners. I'll be reading out some of these comments, and then the panelists will respond before we actually switch our gears to our next topic. Stay tuned, Radio 1 FM 90. Spectrum Extra continues after this break.
Spectrum Extra, Fridays 7 to 9 p.m. on Radio 1 FM 90 p.m. on Radio 1 FM 90.
All right, thank you so much for staying with us on Spectrum Extra live on Radio 1 FM 90, reviewing the major events of the week. Before we went for the break, we were focusing on actually the sanctions that have been imposed on Speaker of Parliament and the other peoples linked to the Karamoja Iron Sheet scandal, and also Major General Peter Elweru, who commanded the operation of the UPDF in Kasese, where the U.S. claims there were extrajudicial killings committed under his watch. You've been sending in your comments, so we'll be looking at some of these comments that are coming, and the panelists in studio will be responding to them. Now, let me begin with this particular comment that comes in from this listener who is Benon Frederick Namasko. He said, it will be interesting to read Speaker Anita Among's response if the Vatican also slapped sanctions on her. Well, earlier on we received reports that she intends to travel to the Vatican in August, specifically on the 14th of August. There were issues to do with...
that's a pilgrimage.
Well, there were issues to do with a visa at the Italian embassy, a number of issues, information still very fresh. We'll be looking for that information in detail, but it's true we have heard that there is a confirmed trip to the Vatican to meet the Pope on the 14th. We have another comment for crying out loud on double jeopardy. Are the sanctions consequential? For all the listed, I don't see them in need of a UK or US visa. Why are we covering and crying more than the bereaved? That's a comment from Richard, who actually thinks these people do not need a visa to the UK or the US. Then we have another comment from Vincent. There's clear manifestation that we have failed to effectively act on basic wrongdoings on numerous occasions on our own, that we need other people to take appropriate actions on our behalf. That's a comment from Vincent. Simon Peter from Kisas Rising. The speaker is corrupt. That's his comment. Even inborn child knows that. Even unborn child knows that. I wonder whether the child, someone can be a child when they are unborn. That's a fetus. Even the fetus knows that.
A rhetorical device.
Well, there is no witch hunt here. She should swallow her pain. We thank the US and UK for the sanctions. We need more sanctions on these corrupt government chaps. That's Olako Simon Peter listening in from Kisas. On the record, we do not have any conviction on the Speaker of Parliament where it has been mentioned that she is corrupt. There are still allegations that have resulted into what we are seeing now. But on the side of the US and the UK, they're actually taking their actions. We have a comment coming in from Anthony. Good evening, Spectrum Extra. I wonder how the Americans wake up one morning and begin to sanction our Ugandans without giving them the total breakdown of this investigation that shows slavery in different form. Is that what they are here for? Let them cancel those sanctions, allow them to defend themselves first. That's a comment from Anthony. Bobby Kampala, Uganda needs a panel of speakers with representation for all regions. The deputy speaker is a non-public fighter who is also not fit to be a speaker. That's Bob there with that comment. He needs a panel of speakers to be able to replace these ones. Good evening, the panel. This is Eddie Bashaija, tuned in from Dunlap, Maryland in the US. Good evening and thank you very much for listening to us. I am wondering as to why Ambassador Mulongo is really fighting for the sanctioned individuals. If I don't want people I believe are not upright to come to my house because I fear for my property and categorically state so, why should anyone question my choice? If the individuals are not bothered, why should third parties worry? Ambassador Mulongo, why are you worried? We have another comment. Some people seem to be above the law in this country. Let us not picture witch hunter. Let's not have a picture of a witch hunter where some people are witch hunted. It's not clear how the speaker has been cleared of so many scams. Well, that's another comment there. Before the Bisiaga Act, there was no action against any corrupt Ugandan official. In fact, the sanctioning of General Elweru, whose alleged crimes took place almost 7 years ago, trial concluded and suspects pleaded guilty and pardoned accordingly, should question the essence of these sanctions, especially given the fact they are from UK and the US, two countries that are pro-Bisiaga. Why wasn't General Elweru sanctioned 7 years ago? Does it mean they have just started seeing corrupt cases or human rights violations after passing the Anti-Homosexuality Act? Anyway, those jubilating should first be advised that sanctions in actual sense hit the ordinary person harder than the well-to-do of politicians. Several case studies allude to this, e.g. Zimbabwe, Russia, etc. By the way, India has the best, cheapest medical care in the world. Given that it's healthy issues that mainly send the rich Ugandans abroad, as long as India is neutral, those Ugandans will be safe. And then he says, and again, if the speaker has property in the UK obtained illegally, then let the UK auction it and send the proceeds back to help the poor for us to take them seriously. That's a comment from Michael. Another comment, the sanctions are a very effective tool of targeting key people without hurting innocent Ugandans. Ugandans need to access Western universities operating in an international monetary system. Bright children go to Ivy League schools for high-level studies in Malaysia, Russia, or China, and therefore sanctions cannot suffice. Then we have another comment. Honorable Mulongo should stop agitating for decent application of the law. That is a fair hearing. Many times locally here in Uganda, opposition are mistreated and abused, and yet the Mulongos with titles of ambassador will stay mute, although Ugandans do not deserve better. Let's preach comprehensively on sanity and equality of humanity in all spheres of life and authority. Well, let me come to you, Mr. Gawaya Tegule. Where do you see this ending? There are some people actually saying it's likely to end on the table with negotiations going on between the government of Uganda and the US and the UK governments. Like Ambassador Mulongo said, there could be other hidden motives that will maybe surface on this table. How do you see this ending?
First was mine first.
No, it's I actually gave it to Mr. Gawaya Tegule.
Yeah, thank you, Ken. I think one thing that comes up now is what remedies do these people have under the law? And ideally, every law that imposes penalties of this kind also has two things. One, exceptions to the general rule, but also remedies or recourse that people can enjoy under these laws. Now, these are not things that you will take to international courts. These are, like I said, domestic laws, but of international application. So a lot can be done under the laws in those countries, but that means they would have to get lawyers who are paid $1 million a week to look at them and then fault either the process or the severity of the punishment, and then be able to get remedies under those laws in those countries.
Where are there situations where sanctions have been reversed?
No, I don't recall any offhand, but the other issue is that ideally diplomatic engagement can also play a part. Government to government, compromises can be made here and there, promises can be made, undertakings can be made, say, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to make remedies here and everything, and then these can be then sorted out. So I think that there's still remedies. So it's not like they've been condemned to hell. It's only hell where you know that once the Lord throws you there, you're done for. But these are things that can be handled under those acts, and you have to go again to the specific acts under which the sanctions have been passed to get remedies. So that's what I would look at for now. But the other thing is that I think as nationals, we should be interested in preventing this thing from happening in the first place. There is no reason, for example, why all the impunity that we see going on should be going on. People need to sober up. People need to grow up and say, you know what, let there be something. There's a word in English that is spelled ENOUGH. It's called enough. I think we need to learn that word. It's a very important word. That enough at some point should be enough. At some point I should have enough money and say, you know what, let other people also eat. Let Simon also have, let Sarah also have. But our friends in power do not know that word called enough. They don't know when they have enough of power, enough of money, enough of opportunity. The more they have, the more they want. And that occasions impunity, because it means you're going to break every rule in the book to get what you want. And when you think you have all the power, you can do what you want. And the other person that is going to face sanctions soon is a certain Chief of Defense Forces of this country, General Muhoozi. You see, the things that he has done, the things that he did to Kakwenza, these things are on record books. It's a matter of time, I can tell you, before Muhoozi faces sanctions. Just because he's the CDF now or he's the son of the president doesn't insulate him. These guys wait for an opportune time, and then they get you. So impunity in all its forms is going to be punished. And that is why I would like to send a message to General Muhoozi. Whatever has been done is going to be followed up, and I can guarantee you.
Maybe you should send a message to the armed forces.
No, like that. I want to single him, because right now he's Chief of Defense Forces.
It's like you have a personal issue with him.
I'm still aggrieved at what happened to Kakwenza. I'm still aggrieved that the judicial system did not help him. So we saw a conspiracy against the helpless. A young boy has been grabbed in broad daylight by the military. He has been tortured. He has been brutalized. They've done so much to him. He's brought to court. A chief magistrate who is, for some reason, holds a court early morning. This boy is bleeding and battered. He's remanded without a lawyer, without hearing. He says, I've been tortured, and under the law, the chief magistrate must investigate such a claim. He's thrown into jail. The army does things to him there. I'm saying no. This kind of impunity must not be allowed to continue in the country. And for me, I think that sanctions like this help people who are helpless, because we have no power against people like the Mohozis and the Musevenis. But when we have sanctions coming in from the superpowers, then as local people we get a remedy. This is a good thing for human rights, and long may it continue.
Let's hear from Sarah. Where do we go from here? And
I would only be worried if Uganda was sanctioned as a government for individuals exercising impunity at several levels, abusing their offices. Let them be punished. Uganda is at the level where you have, like on the village, you have a habitual wife beater. Every night you can't sleep because your neighbor is beating his wife. You need to wake up and rush the wife. The wife is bleeding. You need to wake up and rush her to the hospital. The children are in the compound crying. You cannot sleep. Uganda has reached this level because of impunity. So if somebody can check this impunity, and for any country to have impunity, it means the national processes have failed. We are dealing with a 40-year regime. A 40-year regime whose preoccupation is to keep power. So they do not, when they have a leader, like a leader of an arm of government, like parliament, they are looking at votes, they are looking at what can she bring on table. They are not looking at the plight of the people.
Time.
We are even.
Always in campaign.
So, in such circumstances, it is a neighbor to wake up and rescue a bleeding wife and take her to hospital and give shelter to crying children. That's what the sanctions are doing.
Okay.
Honorable Mulongo.
Yes, I think the question to me was. What should we protect the people about?
There's actually a direct comment that comes from one of the listeners here coming to you.
Are you moderating?
I just wanted to read out this comment so that you can also respond to it. Well, Moses Walugembe, who is listening to us from the US Xtra and says, my comment, yesterday Uganda police made 6 roadblocks denying Bobi Wine a right to proceed to his venue. Yet when Muhoozi moved to Masaka in a political stunt, while actually breaking the law as a soldier, no police stopped him. Today, the likes of Honorable Mulongo come out to claim their corrupt colleagues didn't have a fair hearing. Where is fair hearing to Bobi Wine and many other opposition politicians, supporters who remain locked up in jail on trapped-up charges? They should stop pretending. We support the sanctions, and through NUP, we task these governments to place them on many other people who will soon get them, by the way, including those who undermine our democratic process. That's a comment from
I'm insisting because NUP is on the agenda. I'm coming to it. So if you want us to juggle around between the first and the last. But back to the issue of why do we have to protect our people? The government of a civilized country like Uganda or any other civilized country should protect its citizens.
And this one doesn't.
Yes, it does. And I think, but even, of course, I've been to those countries you want to say they protect, where they brutalize their own citizens to hell. Racial discrimination is too much. So you cannot. It's not just justify, but I'm saying that you cannot tell us that there are some examples to copy when there are even worse situations in those other countries. But the issue is that the right to be protected by the citizens and to speak for them is of any civilized government. But back to this issue. To me, I have not said that these people should not be prosecuted. Once there is a crime committed, whether corruption, whether stealing, whether whatever it is, people should be subjected to the law. The danger with the sanctions, as you could see, our colleague colleague who is very exposed, the journalist and the legal mind, was struggling to see how they can remedy this sanction, and even end up suggesting.
Let's allow him to conclude.
You told me not to interject.
We're just helping.
So you're not helping because you're just behaving opposite.
He just gave an example of how
the NRM does not interject and cause this kind of hullabaloo. But let's come back to this. The sanctions create a need for us to defend these people or to clear them in the states, because these are not
Clear them where?
to clear them. You have to go to the states. He has just told you that.
Why don't you subject them to those in the
No, I don't want to be interfered with. Let
me guide you. There's something that Dr. Sarah Bireete actually said. This is individual culpability. But you want the state of Uganda to defend.
We said, we don't say the state. We're saying that he was arguing that if they are to be cleared, the question was, how can they clear them? Or how can it be cleared? And he was raising the fact that unless you're subject to their own legal regime in their own country, you can see that our people, for them to be cleared, it may require that we go to subject ourselves, our citizens, to the legal regime in the states. And remember the Rome Statute, when actually the US was supporting it. Later on, they came up with an act to disallow themselves for subjecting their citizens to such a jurisdiction. And you can see that kind of jeopardy that we want to now subject our people to the American law. Secondly, I know that to also amplify, to give you some information, that there are about 3 or 4 ways of having this cleared. One is regime change. Once the regime changes, the sanctions collapse. Secondly,
that's if they are up for a government. We are talking of individual sanctions in Uganda.
Yes, but you see,
are you talking about the change of government in
when there's a change of government, a new government comes in with a new relationships, normally the sanctions gets dropped.
Change of government here in Uganda.
Change of government.
Just to give you in principle what can happen to have these matters addressed.
We want to try to understand change of government where?
If there is anywhere, if there are sanctions, say, by Uganda to another country, members of another country, and there's a regime change in that country, usually there are tendencies to drop such charges. Secondly,
Honorable Mulongo,
please don't let me just elaborate this, because even the public want to know what it is.
Rarely do we see the foreign policy of the US actually changing.
It does. It does. And then the second one is, and of course, even if there is a change in regime in America from Democrats to Republicans, some of the things to do with the AHA will change. I can promise you that. The other one is diplomatic avenues, which colleagues have touched. Diplomatic avenues, they can engage, and already you have touched that, and they can actually cause a reversal of that. The other would be the change of behavior of the persons targeted. They can change, they can reform, they can be penalized in the given their countries. If people serve their sentences or they prove their innocence, usually they can drop such sanctions. So, and of course, some people talk about international norms. They're not very clear, and so on. That if your conduct is commensurate to international norms, you can be there can be second thoughts for that. But all that said and done, the fact that the sanctions are coming from regimes in the West who may want to force us to be subjected to their jurisdictions is something we have to do to protect our people. They must be justified. If they're not, when we have institutions in this country that they can carry out justice,
actually,
the
West is simply saying, stay with your people.
They're not saying that. That's the simplistic way of looking at it. We cannot oversimplify it that way.
Simon, it's as simple as that.
It's not.
They're saying
it's more complicated.
Stay where you are, we don't want you here.
Look at what you're saying.
All right, let's shift our gears and look at
not as simplified as that.
The next topic we are looking at is the censure of commissioners of parliament. Earlier today we learned actually today they collected more
14
signatures. Yesterday they had 135 signatures, which means they need roughly like 20 something to actually
get this motion to the House. They need a total of 177 signatures to keep this going.
You don't know the difference between 77 to 135. You said something like...
They had 135, they've collected 14.
14? That gives them a total of what?
145.
No. They had 135.
Today
they collected 14, so they have 149 signatures already collected. So I'll begin with you, Gawaya Tegule. Censure in Parliament. Do you think we are likely to see the House actually sitting to discuss this issue of the service award, which is the primary role why this motion is actually being moved?
Two things, Ken. First of all, I want us to understand the national priorities. What are our priorities as a country? Where do we want to go? What are our aspirations? What do we want to be? Is this right now, at this point in time, is this the most critical thing that the nation should be pursuing? For me, that is what I need to understand. Parliament has had a habit of chasing the small fish and then looking at the small issues, measuring in the minors instead of focusing on what is really strategic for the country. I think that we need to ask ourselves whether this is a priority. I think we have got bigger fish to fry. I think there are things that the Parliament should be looking into. For me, the conduct of the President, the way he's running this country, is something that a vibrant Parliament would be looking into. They would be assessing the suitability of Mr. Museveni's overtures. The way he runs this country, is this how a civilized country should be run? Is this, when a man runs a country like a family enterprise, is that democratic? Is that progressive? Is that is that the country that we want to see? Is this taking the country forward or is it not? These are things that Parliament should be questioning. I'm not trying to downplay the issue of these monies here. I think that it's a critical thing, but I think that if Parliament is worth its salt, then it would be looking at not just tackling the symptoms, but looking at the source of the problem. The source of the problem here is the presidency. If you like, the president. That is where Parliament should be focusing. Parliament has got power to impeach a president. They've got power to pull a president down if they think he's not running the country the right way. Can Parliament do this? I think that's what I need to be asking. I don't think they can, and for me, for that,
maybe there's no need to do that.
I think there is a need to do that. There's a lot of stuff that goes on here that a conscientious Parliament would be looking into and pursuing aggressively, but they let the president get out with all kinds of things, and for me, that is unacceptable. If Parliament wants to show that it bites, then it better really bite where it matters most. I think they're tackling the symptoms and not the sources of the problem. But also, having said that, I also want to say that these service awards, I think, were they necessary? Of course, if it is by statute, then it would be interesting. I mean, if the law says something, then you want to maybe work backwards and say, how was this law enacted? In whose interest does it work? Is it necessary? Does it have the public interest? I mean, there are questions that we need, as citizens, we need to interrogate. But I thought that we have bigger fish to fry. And lastly, the spending of Parliament, the expenditure of Parliament and the state as a whole, I think we need to be, for me, these are the questions that we need to be raising in times like this. We are a poor country. People lack opportunities. People are dying to get jobs. People want to go to school. They can't go to school because there is no money. Can we manage our spending in a way that ensure that there's something for everyone? That's people that on the average, everybody is getting something out of the national cake. I think we are concentrating the national cake into the hands of a small predatory elite that acts only in their self-interest, and therefore you have people doing whatever they can. I mean, by hook or crook to get into power, because then they get free money. I think this is part of the problem. So we need to make politics less rewarding in that sense. That just because you're into politics doesn't give you permission or the power or authority to get any kind of money you want from the public purse just because the law has been passed. I think we need to tackle this at the very root. beyond Mpuga. I think we should be looking beyond Mpuga, the Honorable Mpuga, a man that I deeply respect. I think that we should be looking beyond these other people and saying, what exactly are we aiming at? If this censure is about bringing Mpuga down, then I think it's wrong. The object is wrong. The effect will be not useful to this country. I think we need to focus, and I don't think that this parliament has focus. When I listen to the debates, I just realize that the parliament just absolutely lacks focus. It is a disaster happening before our own very eyes, and as a country, we need to think again.
Dr. Sarah Bireete, on this issue of the censure motion in Parliament.
Well, the censure motion under the rules of procedure of the 11th Parliament requires 177 signatures, as you said, to move to the office of the Clerk of Parliament. My worry is, I know Parliament is on recess, but if the movers are struggling to raise a third of the signatures,
Not so bad.
will they get a half of the MPs to vote? If getting a third of the signatures for the motion is a struggle. Because I had, when the motion started, I had assumed that maybe in 1 week they should have the signatures. They are still lacking 28 signatures. They are almost there, but it has taken a while. Then how about the half to vote? About 246.
To pass the motion.
Pass the motion. Will they come forward?
What is your prophecy, sir?
Depends on the
No. I'm looking at the.
Why are you interfering with her thoughts, Flo?
I'm looking at
He's the
the.
moderator.
I'm looking at the time it has taken. I thought that if there was consensus that this is wrong, personally I have a problem with the legal framework of Parliament. I want a complete overhaul. To take away the power, the budgetary and financial power from ordinary MPs with no expertise. I want Parliament to create an independent entity that does their budgeting, that does recruitment, that does appropriation for budget for Parliament. The judiciary has the Judicial Service Commission with some experienced people. But for Parliament, these are politicians picked and say you are in charge of budgeting, you are in charge of expending money. Now they have a budget of 1.3 trillion. How many of these commissioners have financial
Parliament has
expertise?
technical staff.
I know, but I'm saying that I want, when we need to learn from history. When the UK was rocked with the allowances saga in Parliament, and for them it was just allowances. It's not like ours where we need the forensic audit for Parliament in terms of what is happening there. So we have Parliament that is being hit, completely run down in terms of basic decency. Be it manner of debate, be it manner of expending money, be it manner of conduct. We've seen the people in charge of Parliament shouting at MPs, "You sit down." Decorum. Everything has gone. So we have an arm of government that has been completely run down. So what do you salvage by a mere motion on commissioners? I want an overhaul of the rules of procedure for Parliament to create, but it requires also amendment.
Well, it might be through the debate of that motion that some of those recommendations will be.
Yes, so let them go further and address the fundamentals.
All right. Let's go for a break now. When we return, we'll hear from the Honorable Simon Mulongo, who wants to keep his flow of thoughts. Let's go for a break. Spectrum Extra continues after this break.
Spectrum Extra, Fridays 7 to 9 p.m. on Radio 1 FM 90.
Well, thank you so much for staying with us on Spectrum Extra, review of the major events of the week. My guest,
Dr. Sarah Bireete, Chief Executive Officer at the Center for Constitutional Governance, Council Gawaya Tegule, veteran journalist, lawyer, and columnist with the Daily Monitor, Ambassador Simon Mulongo, governance and security expert, who did represent Bawulo East in Parliament and served as the Deputy Head of the African Union Mission in Somalia. My name is Kenneth, your host. We had a discussion on the sanctions issued by the US. We have now shifted our gears. We are looking at the censure motion in Parliament. Signatures gathering pace, 149 collected today. On Friday, they collected 14 signatures, and they are looking for 177 in total to move the office of the clerk to actually instruct the sergeant at arms to pin this motion on the notice board so that MPs can come and attend to the House and discuss this issue. They are querying the service award. They want 4 commissioners of Parliament sanctioned, censured, and removed from those positions, and we're waiting to see what will actually happen. Let's hear the thoughts of Honorable Simon Mulongo.
Thank you so much. I thought my colleague will aspire to become the speaker, but speakers are supposed to be very highly disciplined people who restrain and listen and moderate. But anyway, I think, first of all,
is that what we've been seeing?
The issues that, I'm not in Parliament. As such, I cannot be critical enough.
All right, you've been in Parliament. You've been in Parliament before, and you're one of those astute debaters in
yes,
that house.
But let me come to this.
I wanted to ask you your experience, the way Parliament is being run now, and how it used to run that time.
The point I was making is that I'm not there fully to appreciate adequately. Whatever I capture is really limited for me to make full judgment of how the Parliament is run.
So you're doing an ostrich.
No. But let me come to the point here, because the menu here is very clear about censure.
Simon knows the truth.
The issue is Parliament has in its provisions for members to move a censure motion, and so it's within their rights and the requirements for them to do so. So as long as they pursue this within the rules, there's no problem. But of course, there are also politics, a lot of politics. You don't know what is the undercurrents about it. It could be some force somewhere that is making them to take this course of action, and whether it plays into the strategic mindset like the panelists are saying or not. You know, once you're in the House, there are a lot of forces that happen, and people find themselves chasing a rat other than an elephant, or chasing something else, and so on and so forth. So I wouldn't want to be very judgmental on that. What I know is that it's their right. Secondly, I think the issue of service awards is okay. It's okay in the sense that it is provided for in the laws and so on. But service awards, they're all over. In fact, even there is a specific act of Parliament on service awards, which could be either meritorious or in terms of performance, people are rewarded. Even private institutions have service awards policies. Now, to me, what's important is the guidelines. One, is there explicit provision for them to determine who should deserve what and therefore how much? And second, in other words, if it is performance, then we should know how well somebody is ranked to have performed very well. It's not supposed to be done behind the curtains. The third one is that they should be supported by a budget provision, because was there budget for it? Because a budget sometimes is passed and people don't even wake up to see certain details, and you find that it has been passed. So were these awards provided for in the budget framework that resulted into the budget that we have today? And then finally, what is do the commissioners have absolute powers to do this? For example, do they have powers to determine the levels of the awards? I think this can be very significant things for us to check. And if the answer is no, then they have a lot of law which must be checked. I was talking to some member of Parliament who assured me that these monies were budgeted for in the budget.
Well, they might have been budgeted for,
but if they were
in a wrong way,
was it? Well, Council here said that check that.
How come for the service award of the Auditor General, who is also an office of Parliament, they had to bring a substantive motion in the House to have it ratified?
And I would like to take the coup from that, meaning that maybe they should have done the same. Once you put presidency in place, then you have to sustain it. Finally, on this, I remember there was a motion following the death of Honorable Nebanda, and it was the saga of signatures. It became really tough. And once the signatures reached actually beyond the threshold, there was some lots of back-door movements where some signatures actually
people trying to withdraw their signatures.
Actually, people were meant to. They came out to withdraw.
The rules do not allow you to withdraw.
I remember a similar case happened when there was a case of the Honorable Muhwezi and others who were being sanctioned, not sanctioned but censured. And the then Speaker, Right Honorable Wapakaburo, declined that if we pick this practice, it can also percolate into the other laws where people who are nominated for elections, the 20 signatures then, they can be withdrawn and then your nomination collapses. So it said that once you have that, people have painted their signatures, they should not be withdrawn. So all this have seen things oscillating between positive and negative, which is not okay. We must be very firm, and until just like courts, until a superior jurisdiction overrules the lower one, there's no way you can just change the presidents. So I think it will be unfortunate for us to see these things changing, oscillating from somebody coming in, depending on the regime of the speaker in the seat. So to me, I want to agree that there has to be clear scrutiny to this. Should they be censured? Well, if there is cause and justified one, and there is majority members of parliament agree to it, why not? But of course, is this the major thing? As I said, the winds that blow in those kind of corridors are very different from those that blow outside here. What you think is not major, it could be major in the house.
All right, we have comments still coming in. Samuel Yiga, Namlondo Zone, writes in and says, Kenneth, thank you for the show. Sanctions to government officials are clear indicators that the government is failing and corrupt. But we shall remember them in history that they were mighty but will be no more. Let them continue with their dubious actions of stealing this country's resources. More sanctions are on the way. My friends, the space within which impunity can be practiced is shrinking. One individual in the studio has said the speaker has not been charged in any court. He ain't being serious. Who doesn't know Gambanogo and do you know who I am? The phenomenon that is common here in Uganda. These sanctions have helped trim their wings. That's a comment from Stephen Rutaro. We still have another comment coming in from Moses Walgembe in the US, who says, Honorable Mulongo is lying to the public. These are individual sanctions that they won't get dropped even if there is change of government in these countries. He's lying. Kayihura was sanctioned in Trump's regime, for instance. Why haven't they changed or so in Biden's regime? Let him not lie to you. On the censure motion, it's wrong to state that this is targeting Puga. It's a message to the commissioners, even in future, that they can't sit down and give themselves money. That was wrong. It's another impunity in parliament. On an overall, it's impossible. We should all be supporting the censure motion as a country, not beating around the bush. That is Moses Walgembe there with that comment. Well, let's shift our gears and now look at matters political. NUP and the police had an agreement on how assemblies should be held.
Yeah, but
they had one in Mkono the other day.
I was referring to a regime of the sanctioned people, not the one sanctioning.
All right, we asked you to clarify which regimes you were actually saying need to change so that the sanctions drop. You said either way. Could be in the countries that issued the sanctions. Well, let's continue now. Today, we saw the activity in Masaka taking place, and some people actually debating and saying that NUP has been given an opportunity to get out there so much early ahead of 2026 general elections, and if they hold their activities very well, they could actually make more gains in areas where they didn't get representatives in parliament or more votes. Mr. Gawaya, what's your take on that? The activities on NUP and how police has finally allowed them to continue carrying out their activities?
Well, let's get one thing clear. I think that, we have a problem with Uganda police. There has been a bastardization of the police force. This is not what police is supposed to be like. Thank you. There is always police should be operating. It should be a neutral force. It should be there to protect, to serve, to to facilitate public life to continue on a normal trajectory. We should not be seeing this as a favor that the police is being nice and magnanimous. I think the police that we want to see is one that is loyal to the law. It has fidelity to the law and loyal to the public, in the sense that if NUP has a rally, the role of police should be to facilitate that rally, to protect people at that rally, to make sure that everybody is safe and they can come and go safely. That is how things should be. We should not be reducing ourselves to a point where we're celebrating that police has allowed NUP. No, that is wrong, and that is how far we have sunk as a country, that Mr. Museveni has reduced us to that point where police playing its normative role is now being seen as a favor. This should not be allowed to continue. I think police must be apolitical. Police must be a neutral force. It must be a civilian force. It must be under civilian control. It must work for the good of everybody. It must keep the law and order irrespective of who is involved. And that's what we would like to see. That's where we would like to go. And the fact that the fact that NUP is being allowed to carry on its activities, I think everybody who is lawfully engaging in political activity should be facilitated by the police to carry out their political activity. As long as everything is being done lawfully, there should be no problem. We would like also, because I think the tendency has been that NRM claims popularity, but they never allow their opponents to mobilize. Exactly. They never allow their opponents to go out and talk to the people. So I think we should, I would like NRM to win freely and fairly, so that when you say we have won the election, we say there was a level playing ground, everybody had equal opportunity to compete, and whoever won did win fairly. I think there's this an anomaly that we need to address as a country.
Let me hear from you, Dr. Sarah Bireete, on this issue.
Previously, we have had, challenges with public rallies for political parties because of excesses of police. Police assumes that the power to regulate public assemblies means the power to prohibit. The Constitutional Court has pronounced itself on several accounts that police has no such power to stop the enjoyment of a right to assembly as enshrined under Article 29 of the Constitution. So I'm glad that at least there is a shift against that draconian interpretation or misinterpretation of our laws. Having said that, the power to regulate means that if you have events like NUP is having, then you agree on venues, on routes to take, so that, because the enjoyment of your right to assemble, again, should not take away the freedom of the others. So I'm glad that finally, after so much abuse, we are at this level. So what then is required of political parties and the government? I want to underscore the fact that government has finally found some shame because of the activities of MKPLU. You have a serving officer now with CDF who has been going around the country with huge rallies and assemblies untouched. So now that has caused embarrassment to police on how then you stop others. But that stopping was unconstitutional. I don't know whether this shift would have happened if we did not have that abuse of a soldier on a campaign trail. So, and then now the egg on the face, you can't say the people who wear yellow are free to gather anyhow, anywhere, and you wear blue, pink, red, and whatever, you can't gather. So, having said that, then it's yet to be, because there was a hurdle in the first two tours, Kamwili and another, where Nupu was stopped, including a blockage on Ginger and the rest. So now the Mukono and Masaka have gone on. A few issues accidents in Masaka, maybe for the citizens now also to check their conduct. Because the accident that has happened, the people, running into, 3 people are dead. In the procession somewhere on the way to Masaka. So the citizens now also need to check themselves as they participate and enjoy their political rights. It's a good sign as we head to the 2026 elections. As an election observer, I would like to see a level playing field where all political parties have a right to market themselves as political parties, sell their ideas, market their issues to the electorate, and I hope that when we go towards the elections, the same semblance of a level ground will be sustained, and we can have a normal election, because what has happened previously, it's hard even to call them elections. They've been something weird.
How? Yes, very quickly. Why me when it comes to me, just quickly? Yeah, thank you. That you have received that.
The one who hear you very well.
Yes, again, quickly. It's actually shrinking. But
We can't wait to hear you.
Yes. I think, to me, the last time we were here is when we had complaints, and the next 1 or 2 days is when the NUP would be meeting police officials, and we applauded that. Our take was that if the communication, each side is accusing the other of no communication, then it's better they meet so that they iron out those bottlenecks. And I was happy that to learn that they actually met and they agreed. One, they confirmed that certain communications either way were not being made effectively, and secondly, that actually the police had strong points about pointing to the fact that there was impunity on the part of some political activists who were operating in a manner that was bordering on the disruption of law and order, and so on, and that the police, because we're not in a clear norm, could not guarantee the security of both the processions and also even the places of holding rallies. So the discussion had to conclude to the fact that they had to even appoint a special person who would be an intermediary. They called the person a liaison officer to be playing between police and the NUP. My own take is that it was an issue of whether they were following the guidelines, because even other groups that are moving across the country were abiding by those rules. And the fact that these ones fell short of that is what had created issues. And I'm happy that the police had opened up the doors for this discussion to go on. We cannot be ingratitude to say it is a given and therefore we cannot say they have done anything good. After all, they expected. Yes, they are. Even somebody you believe like your dad, you have a right to demand that he takes you to school. But if he gives you school fees, you should be able to say thank you, Dad, because that is something, an additive. It's not as automatic, but at least he has done his right. It's your right to have that education from him.
Have you watched the movie Guess Who's Coming to Dinner?
Yes. But the thing is,
please watch it again.
No. Yeah, but the fact is that we must say thank you to the IGP.
All right.
We must say thank you to the Director Operations who actually hosted this meeting, and they had serious and candid discussions. Of course, we must also thank you to the NUP officials for also going there and also engaging very candidly about what they believed were their rights.
All right, we have
so to me, this is a very good step forward, and we look forward to fairness as we proceed towards 2026. But as long as we abide by the rules, you see, what causes problems is abiding by the rules.
All right, we have comments coming in. NUP has the right. It's not that the police allowed. We are law-abiding citizens. Police should stop breaking the law. Long live His Excellency Robert Kyagulanyi. Long live NUP. That's a comment, I think, from a supporter of NUP there. Hello, Ken. Thank you for the show. Is Mr. Kyagulanyi cutting the branch on which he sits? Can the Speaker delegate LOP or Deputy Speaker to US when herself is under sanctions? By the way,
what is Mr. Senyonyi's stand on the minority law? That's Henry from Chiwenda there. We have not yet heard from Senyonyi his position on this issue of sexual minority law. That's, I think, the issue that he is putting across. Albert, listening in from Entebbe, please kindly educate me. Is the proposed censure of the honorables a general vote of no confidence as MPs or as commissioners? If as MPs, what role does the electorate play? If not, what value is this process adding? It's only about them as commissioners, and is asking what value does it add. Mr. Tegule is on the right track. We need to rethink the whole thing about Uganda. We need to break the governance vicious cycle, and starting point is national dialogue. We need to institutionalize the national dialogue and make it regular. Elected leaders won't help us much. They should be just 5%. We need civil society practitioners, professionals that do governance as a job for a living. We need academia and other regular goodwill people. Delegates should not be given allowances but facilitated through a meal card only. Well, that's a contribution there from the listener who did not leave a name behind, unfortunately. Radio 1, thank you for the show. Is in the censure of commissioners getting too close to the censure of Speaker herself, who presided over the awards bonanza? Isn't she quietly fighting back? That's a comment coming in from Pat. Well, we heard from Theodore Sechkubo earlier today that there are some machinations that have started manifesting in Parliament, that apparently MPs are being given trips to leave the country so that they should not sign this. And he's saying that he has cross-checked, and he says he has cross-checked. There is no official parliamentary business that most of these MPs are going to attend. Actually, in one of the comments he made when he was speaking to the media, he said that majority of them are going in a hotel and then looking through the window and getting amazed by what they are seeing across the streets. Well, gentlemen and ladies, let's sum up this this discussion. What do you expect in the coming days, in the coming weeks, looking at the stories we have looked at?
The movers of the censure motion have pushed through. They need 28 more signatures. Against all odds, there have been attempts to grab the lists. There are talks of money, 25 million going around. There is a talk of 30 MPs going for a non-existing event in Tanzania. One of the MPs who would have been part of the movers was given a trip to Canada and is not anywhere to be seen. Has he gone? I don't know, but yeah. So they are working against all these odds, but pushing forward.
Maybe there are coincidences.
I don't know.
Canada,
they are pushing forward. I wish them well, because for me it's a beginning of the conversation on matters Parliament. It shouldn't be the only issue, because that Parliament needs a complete overhaul. So even when we talk about abuse of parliamentary funds and the issues that the Speaker is being sanctioned for, the question is, where were the commissioners? Has that vote happened? Where were the commissioners? So maybe they should be sanctioned for incompetence. And that's the more basis that I'm arguing for creation of an independent standards authority, like in the UK, to do the financial matters of Parliament and take away the politicians out of it.
Very quickly, Mr. Tegule, your closing remarks as we come to the end of this show.
Well, my prediction is that nothing will come out of, like Sarah says, this is a good start. I think the gesture is okay. You know, there are battles which you win because you went to the battlefront. Whatever happens after that is really inconsequential. So I think here they win by simply saying we've made an attempt to launch a censure. We've expressed our displeasure about or against what happened. I think that is a win in itself. Beyond that, getting to the final details of the matter, saying, okay, now these guys have been censured. I don't think that will happen. That is a dream too far. I don't think we should expect much.
Honorable Simon Mulongo, your closing remarks as we come to the end of the show.
I think, thank you so much. We've had a very good discourse in terms of sanctions. I think whatever we came up with is something that our audience can learn from. The issue of censure, as I said, what is important is justice. analysis. They must have reasons, justifiable reasons. If they don't have them, they should not do that. But if they have, let's see how it will proceed, because the next level is actually Parliament to vote for or against.
And the promise by the Ugandan government actually to engage the US Embassy, the UK Embassy on these particular issues. Mr. Gawaya, do you see any reverse or any negotiation there that can actually change the trajectory we're actually seeing?
Yeah, like I said, these sanctions are not like you've been dropped in hell by the Most High God. These things can be reversed. It depends on how they play their game. There must be, I think Simon did say a lot about what can be done. I do agree with him. But I think these are political issues which can be resolved politically, and which, if somebody is keen, and if somebody can go and say, guys, can we talk about this? Can we make commitments to reverse this? Okay, we agree we made mistakes here. Can we make amends here? Once they see that these things can be reversed, they should not be too much read into this.
All right, I'm afraid time is not our best ally. We've actually had enough time to discuss some of these issues. Let's keep tabs on them and see how they will develop during the course of the week. And you never know, we might be here next Friday looking at a different set of other things altogether. Well, that we come to the end of Spectrum Extra this week. I've been your host, Kenneth Lukwago Anderson. Let me thank you, my dear guests, for making time to actually come here to discuss these issues. But also, let me thank the listener who has taken time not only to listen, but also sending in comments to contribute to this discussion. Spectrum will be back on Monday, but up next, we continue with the great songs and great memories with BB Jr.